1 Kings 20 and 21. Our reading includes two side stories, the first being a king from Syria, Ben-Hadad, coming down north or coming south into Israel and being defeated, and then also the killing of a man named Naboth just for the sake of seizing his field or his vineyard. But what I'd like to do is return actually to the story of Elijah. We read him last time. It's a very fast-paced story, so a lot was there. I'd like to return and talk about him. In fact, let's return to a bigger picture again of what this daily dose is really meant to be doing, and that's understand the story of Scripture. Let me read, in fact, to you what I said to myself, and I'd like to see if you agree and then work from it. Here's what I said to myself when I thought about the larger story of Scripture and even the Elijah story. People who are being told what the Bible means, but are instead being given selected stories from the Bible, which are then immediately applied to their life, are neither learning the Bible nor learning to respect the biblical story. What do you think? This comes from experience, in my estimation. In fact, I was just reading a biography where the atheist, the person in the story is an atheist, and it literally said this. He was taught the Bible from the age of an early child, but the scriptural story did not appeal to him. And that's one of the reasons he became an atheist. I found that interesting. Even when I was in college or teaching in a Christian university here in the Minneapolis area, I was called by a atheist organization, in fact, Minnesota Atheists. And the president told me, hey, we've got numerous students who are joining the atheist movement who are coming from your university, your Christian university. I thought I'd just tell you that, and so I said, that's interesting. And we all had coffee together, several of the students and the president and me. And of course, I asked them, what did we do wrong? Did we not give you enough Bible or that sort of thing? And I remember one student saying, it was because of the Bible classes that I became an atheist. Because what I sensed, what was happening was a phrase here, a story there was taken out of the Bible and applied to me, trying to moralize me, to make me more moral. But when I asked difficult questions, I sensed I didn't get a good response. And so I sensed that the very people who were teaching me the Bible didn't know the Bible. Well, that was, again, a shock. And so here's what I'd like to use even Elijah for as an example. That using stories from Elijah, and let's think of 5 that came out of the story. He visits a Gentile woman and is kind to her and even resuscitates her dead son. He asks for a physical sign from heaven in front of other believers of another God, and he makes a bet to see a physical sign. When he wins this bet, he kills 450 prophets of Baal. Remember that part of it? Then he runs, and remember this depression that he goes through. He asks even to die at God's allowance, because he's just, again, I guess the word depression is what we have used there. And then he hears this small voice, and he learns that God is still on his side. All right, those are 5 examples of stories within a larger story. And here's the point that, again, I personally, and I'm recommending it again through these videos, that what we do is trade in the idea of using these stories and applying them to our life, trading that whole idea in for getting into the story with the person himself. In other words, I may never use the story myself, but that's okay because I'm not expected to do it that way. Or I'm not expected to use the biblical story in that manner. For example, should we, let's just think through these 5 stories and how they're often applied. Should we go to Gentiles today? Of course, the answer would be yes. Should I ask for a physical sign in front of my atheistic neighbor? I'm not sure. Should I kill him if he loses the bet with me about which God is real? I would say no. Again, I'm thinking through how this is usually applied. Is it proper to go through depression? Well, in one sense, we're not going to say we can't. Some people do. And that story of Elijah's sadness could be applied various ways. The still small voice, I always hear it being taught as, yes, I need to turn off the car radio so I can listen to God. Again, do you see where a person who goes through this, and I remember this even as a, junior higher or so, when I heard the story of this, my mind went to this. And I was wondering, why didn't you also teach me to kill those who disagree with the worship of Yahweh? Those sort of things. So that's where, again, I would recommend backing out of the use of these things. Even let's think of this small voice idea. What is the point of that story? Remember, God was in the hail and the thunder and the rain and the lightning in Exodus 9:23, and Elijah expected him to be there again. He was in the same location of Exodus 9:23, and then God wasn't there in those ideas, but he was in the small voice. So I don't think the point of the story was not that I need to turn down my radio to hear God. It's that God can be heard in any way he chooses, and that would be what you would take from that story. How about this killing? I end with this because that is a shock to our system, is it not? That after Elijah wins this bet, he rounds up the 450 prophets of Baal and literally executes them. Here again, I'd recommend we see the point of the story in terms of its trajectory. Why would he do that? If I'm standing next to Elijah, why would he kill them? I remember after an atheist debate down in Northfield, Minnesota, I went out with the person I debated plus some students on both sides of the argument. About a dozen of us went out for coffee afterwards. So that's very different from this. So how am I having coffee here with those who don't follow Yahweh, but Elijah would kill them? Well, remember where he was in the story. Joshua is told to kill all the Canaanites or all the pagans in Canaan. We have a David who is killing 10,000 people for various reasons. In other words, that's part of the story that he's living through. We will come to Jonah, Daniel, Jesus, Paul, and Ronn. In other words, let's be in fact surprised if Elijah would have shaken hands with those prophets and had coffee with them, because that's not happening till later in the story. So, in fact, we would be surprised if he would have shaken hands. If we understand the story properly, the killing of those prophets makes all the sense in the world.